It's 2:30 in the morning. You're sound asleep. And then, out of nowhere, your calf muscle seizes up like a vice grip. The pain shoots up your leg. You jerk awake, gasping. You have to jump out of bed, put your foot on the cold floor, and hobble around the room just to get that muscle to let go. If you're over 60, I'll bet that scenario sounds very familiar. Leg cramps, especially those middle-of-the-night cramps, become more and more common as we age. And most people just accept it. They think, well, that's just getting older. But I'm here to tell you today that is not the whole story. Because what I've seen in decades of clinical practice is this. What you put on your plate, what you eat and drink every single day, can be silently triggering these cramps. And for millions of Americans over 60, the foods causing the most damage are the ones they least suspect. Today, I'm going to share with you the 6 most common foods and drinks that cause leg cramps in older adults. I'm going to show you the science behind exactly why these foods do what they do to your muscles. And most importantly, I'm going to give you practical steps, things you can start doing today to take back control. Stay with me through this entire video because food number 3 is one that almost every single person watching this consumes every single day, and I think it's going to surprise you. And if you haven't already, please take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week, we bring you real medically grounded information to help you age strong, stay healthy, and live well. Let's get started. Before we talk about the specific foods, I want to spend just a moment explaining what's actually happening in your body when a leg cramp strikes, because this is going to help everything else make perfect sense. Your muscles work like electrical systems. Every time a muscle contracts or relaxes, it depends on a precise balance of minerals, what we call electrolytes, moving in and out of your muscle cells. The key players are magnesium, potassium, calcium, and sodium. When those minerals are in balance, your muscles fire and release smoothly. You don't even notice it happening. But when that balance gets disrupted, when you're low on magnesium or potassium, or when sodium goes too high, the electrical signals that control your muscles get scrambled. And that's when your calf, your foot, or the back of your thigh seizes up without warning. Now here's why this becomes a bigger problem after age 60. First, our kidneys become less efficient as we age. They have a harder time regulating mineral levels and holding on to the electrolytes your muscles need. Second, the nerve fibers that carry signals to your muscles undergo natural changes with age. They become less precise, more prone to misfiring. And third, and this is the piece most people miss, our digestive systems don't absorb magnesium and potassium as efficiently from food as they did when we were younger. So by the time you're 60, 65, 70, your system is already working with a narrower margin. It doesn't take much to push it over the edge into cramp territory. And that's exactly why the foods you eat matter so much more now than they ever did before. Now let's talk about the 6 biggest culprits. Let's start with something that sits in the refrigerators of tens of millions of American homes right now: sugary drinks. I'm talking about regular sodas, sweetened iced teas, fruit punches, sports drinks loaded with sugar, those flavored bottled coffees. If it's sweet and it comes in a bottle or a can, pay close attention. Here's what happens in your body when you consume high amounts of sugar. When blood sugar spikes rapidly, your pancreas releases a surge of insulin to bring it back down. Now, here's the connection most people never hear about. That insulin surge dramatically increases the amount of magnesium that your kidneys excrete, flush out through your urine. Every time you have a big sugar hit, you're essentially telling your kidneys to dump magnesium. And magnesium, as I mentioned, is one of the most critical minerals for muscle function. In fact, magnesium acts as what I call nature's muscle relaxant. When you're low on magnesium, your muscles lose their ability to fully relax between contractions. They stay in a state of tension, coiled, ready to spasm at the slightest trigger. The medical term for low magnesium is hypomagnesemia, and research has consistently linked it to increased frequency of muscle cramps, particularly in older adults. Now think about this. If you're having a soda with lunch, a sweet tea with dinner, and maybe a sweetened coffee in the afternoon, you are creating repeated magnesium-draining spikes throughout your day, every single day. What should you do? Start replacing sugary drinks with water, plain, sparkling, or infused with lemon or cucumber. If you want something with a little natural sweetness and an electrolyte boost, coconut water is an excellent option. It contains potassium, magnesium, and sodium in natural proportions your body recognizes. Even reducing your sugary drink intake by half is a meaningful step in the right direction. This one is a big one, my friends, because processed and fast food is everywhere in the American diet. I'm talking about chips, crackers, canned soups, frozen meals, deli meats, fast food burgers and fries, packaged sauces and dressings. The problem here is sodium, and not just a little bit of it. The average fast food meal can contain 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of sodium. That's the entire daily limit recommended by the American Heart Association in a single sitting. Many packaged and canned foods aren't far behind. Now, sodium itself isn't evil. Your body needs it. But when sodium goes out of balance with potassium, and that balance is everything, your muscle cells begin to malfunction. Here's the physiology. Sodium and potassium work together as a paired system. Think of them like two sides of a seesaw inside your muscle cells. When sodium gets too high, it pushes potassium out of the cell. Low intracellular potassium disrupts the electrical gradient your muscles depend on to contract and release properly. On top of that, excess sodium causes your body to hold on to water and then excrete it in ways that pull additional potassium and magnesium out with it. You're losing two critical minerals at once. And there's another layer to this. Processed foods are also almost entirely stripped of fiber, vitamins, and the micronutrients that support muscle health. You're taking in a lot of calories and almost no nutritional support for your muscles. The practical step here? Start reading labels. Look for foods with less than 600 milligrams of sodium per serving. Cook more at home using fresh or frozen vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, where you control how much salt goes in. And when you do eat something salty, make sure you're drinking enough water and eating potassium-rich foods to counterbalance it. Here it is, the one I told you about at the beginning, coffee. I know. Some of you are looking at this screen right now and thinking, Dr. Mandell, don't you dare take my coffee. And I want to be very clear. I am not telling you to give up coffee entirely. Coffee has real benefits. Research has shown it can support cognitive function, metabolism, and even cardiovascular health in moderate amounts. But here is what you need to understand if you are drinking 3, 4, 5 cups a day, especially if you're also waking up with leg cramps. Caffeine is a natural diuretic. That means it tells your kidneys to produce more urine. And when you urinate more frequently, you don't just lose water, you lose electrolytes along with it. Magnesium, potassium, calcium, all being flushed out with every trip to the bathroom. That's the first mechanism, but there's a second one, and this is the one that really catches people off guard. Research published in the Journal of Human Nutrition and other peer-reviewed sources has shown that caffeine actually interferes with the absorption of calcium and magnesium in your intestines. Even the caffeine that doesn't send you to the bathroom is reducing how much of these minerals your gut absorbs from the food you eat. So you have a double hit happening. You're absorbing less magnesium from your diet, and you're excreting more of what you did absorb. Now layer on top of this the fact that many people drink their coffee in the evening or have an afternoon energy drink, and that caffeine is disrupting their sleep architecture. Deep, restorative sleep is when your muscles recover, repair, and regulate. Disrupted sleep increases nighttime muscle tension and the likelihood of nocturnal cramping. Here is my recommendation. Keep your caffeine to 1 to 2 cups of coffee per day, and aim to finish your last cup by early afternoon, no later than 2 p.m. For every cup of coffee you drink, follow it with a full glass of water to start offsetting the diuretic effect. And if you're a heavy coffee drinker, make the reduction gradual. Cutting back too fast can trigger headaches. This one may be uncomfortable for some of you, but I want you to hear me out, because the science here is very clear. Alcohol is one of the most powerful diuretics that exists. When you drink alcohol, it suppresses a hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which normally tells your kidneys to conserve water and hold on to electrolytes. When alcohol suppresses ADH, your kidneys go into overdrive, flushing out fluid at a much faster rate than normal. And with that fluid goes magnesium, potassium, zinc, all the minerals your muscles rely on. Research has shown that chronic alcohol consumption, even moderate regular drinking over time, is one of the most reliable ways to develop hypomagnesemia, which is that low magnesium state we talked about earlier. Some studies have found that people who drink regularly have significantly lower blood magnesium levels than those who don't, even when their diets are otherwise similar. But here's the piece that directly connects to those middle-of-the-night leg cramps. Alcohol doesn't just drain your minerals, it also profoundly disrupts your sleep architecture. It suppresses REM sleep and deep sleep, particularly in the second half of the night. This is exactly the period when your muscles do their most important recovery work. When you take away deep sleep, you leave muscles in a state of chronic tension. And that chronic tension, combined with electrolyte depletion, is a perfect formula for waking up at 3 a.m. with a searing cramp in your calf. I'm not telling you that you can never have a glass of wine or a beer, but if you are experiencing frequent leg cramps, I want you to honestly look at your alcohol intake. If you do drink, drink water alongside it. At minimum, 1 glass of water for every alcoholic drink. Don't drink alcohol within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime. And consider taking magnesium, which we'll talk about shortly, to help replenish what alcohol takes away. Now we come to a category that is deeply embedded in the American diet, and that very few people connect to leg cramps. White bread, white pasta, white rice, pastries, sugary cereals, crackers made from refined flour. These are what we call refined carbohydrates, foods that have been processed to remove the bran and germ from the grain, leaving behind a product that digests very quickly. Here's the connection to leg cramps. When you eat refined carbohydrates, they digest rapidly and cause a sharp spike in blood glucose, very similar in effect to what we discussed with sugary drinks. That spike triggers a surge of insulin, and as we've covered, that insulin surge increases magnesium excretion through the kidneys. The more refined carbohydrates you eat, and the more frequently, the more you are chronically depleting your magnesium reserves. But there's an additional layer here that makes refined carbs particularly problematic. When grain is refined, it loses the majority of its magnesium, potassium, B vitamins, and fiber. So not only is the food spiking your insulin and accelerating mineral loss, it's also delivering almost none of the nutrients you need to replenish what's being lost. Compare that to a whole grain like quinoa, oats, or brown rice. These digest slowly, produce a gentle, gradual glucose response, and come naturally loaded with magnesium, potassium, and fiber. Research on skeletal muscle health in older adults has consistently shown that low dietary magnesium is a significant risk factor for muscle dysfunction, including cramps, spasms, and weakness. My recommendation: begin replacing refined carbs with whole food alternatives. Oatmeal instead of sugary cereal at breakfast, whole grain bread instead of white, sweet potatoes instead of white rice as a side dish, quinoa in your salads. These are not dramatic changes, but over weeks and months, they make a meaningful difference in your mineral balance and your muscle health. Now, this last one is a little different from the others because I'm not pointing to a single food you're eating. I'm talking about the foods you're not eating enough of. This is what I call the silent deficiency, and it may be the single most widespread nutritional problem among Americans over 60. The National Institutes of Health recommends that men over 60 consume 420 milligrams of magnesium per day, and women over 60 need 320 milligrams. Yet, studies consistently show that the vast majority of older Americans fall significantly short of these targets. And when it comes to potassium, the recommended daily intake is 4,700 milligrams, an amount that many Americans don't come close to reaching. Why does this matter so much for leg cramps? Potassium is essential for the electrical gradient across your muscle cell membranes, the mechanism that allows muscles to contract and then fully relax. Without adequate potassium, that electrical gradient flattens and muscles become hyperexcitable, meaning they fire more easily and are much harder to calm down once they start. Magnesium, meanwhile, is required for more than 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. Among its most important functions, it acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, preventing too much calcium from flooding into muscle cells and causing sustained contraction. When magnesium is low, calcium goes unchecked, and your muscles stay contracted far longer than they should. Together, these two minerals are the foundation of healthy muscle function, and when they're chronically low, which in modern American diets they very often are, leg cramps become almost inevitable. So, what do you need to add to your diet? For magnesium, spinach, Swiss chard, pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans, avocado, and dark chocolate with high cocoa content. For potassium, bananas, sweet potatoes, avocado, white beans, salmon, lentils, and leafy greens. The goal is to make at least one or two of these foods a consistent part of every single day. Now that you know the 6 foods working against you, I want to give you a clear, simple action plan. 3 steps you can start tonight. Step 1, hydrate strategically.
Most Americans, especially those over 60, are chronically, mildly dehydrated without even knowing it. As we age, our sense of thirst becomes less reliable. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already behind. Aim for at least 8 glasses of water per day and consider adding natural electrolyte sources to your hydration. A glass of coconut water, water with a squeeze of lemon and a tiny pinch of sea salt, or a simple magnesium powder dissolved in water in the evening. Hydration is the foundation everything else is built on. Step 2. Rebuild your mineral foundation. I want to talk for a moment about magnesium supplementation because for many people over 60, diet alone may not be enough to fully replenish depleted stores.
The form of magnesium matters. I recommend magnesium glycinate. It's the most bioavailable form, meaning your body actually absorbs and uses it efficiently. And unlike magnesium oxide, which is the cheapest form you find in most drugstores, magnesium glycinate is very gentle on the digestive system. Most people can take 200 to 400 milligrams per day without any stomach issues. Taking it at night, about 30 to 60 minutes before bed, can be particularly helpful because it also supports deeper, more restful sleep, which, as we discussed, plays a direct role in reducing nocturnal leg cramps. As always, talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement, particularly if you have kidney disease or are taking medications. Step 3. Audit your plate. Go back through the 6 foods we discussed today. Be honest with yourself about how much of each one you're consuming. Don't try to change everything at once. That approach rarely works. Instead, pick 2 items from the list and focus on reducing them this week. Replace them with better alternatives. Then next week, tackle the next one. Small, consistent changes at the dinner table, sustained over weeks and months, can have a profound impact on your muscle health, your sleep quality, and your quality of life. As I like to say, small changes, compounded over time, create big healing. Before I close, I want to take a moment to talk about something serious. If you are experiencing frequent, severe leg cramps, particularly if those cramps are accompanied by swelling in the legs, numbness or tingling, leg discoloration, or any chest discomfort, please do not wait. See your doctor. Leg cramps in older adults can sometimes be a symptom of conditions that require medical attention. Peripheral artery disease, which is reduced blood flow to the legs, diabetic neuropathy, thyroid dysfunction, or side effects from commonly prescribed medications, including statins, diuretics, and certain blood pressure medications. Please do not stop taking any prescription medication without consulting your physician first, even if you suspect it may be contributing to your cramps. There may be alternatives your doctor can recommend, and that conversation is very much worth having. The dietary changes I've shared today are powerful, evidence-based strategies, but they are not a substitute for proper medical evaluation if something more serious is going on. Your health is worth protecting on every level. All right, my friends, let's bring this all together. Today we talked about 6 foods that may be silently triggering your leg cramps. Number 1. Sugary drinks and sodas, which cause insulin spikes that drain magnesium through your kidneys. Number 2. Processed and fast foods, overloaded with sodium that throws your potassium balance into chaos. Number 3. Coffee and caffeinated drinks, which act as double-hitting diuretics that flush out your electrolytes and block their absorption. Number 4. Alcohol, which aggressively depletes magnesium and potassium while destroying the deep sleep your muscles need to recover. Number 5. White bread, pasta, and refined carbs, which chronically drain your magnesium reserves with every high glycemic spike. And number 6. The silent deficiency, simply not eating enough of the potassium and magnesium-rich whole foods your muscles absolutely depend on. Remember, your body is always working for you. It is always trying to heal. Sometimes it just needs you to stop getting in the way. Make the small changes, give your muscles what they need, and I promise you, your nights will be more peaceful, your legs will feel stronger, and your mornings will start with gratitude instead of pain. Now, I have a very important question for you before you go, and I read every single one of your comments. Go down below right now and tell me, which of these 6 foods do you think is the biggest culprit in your diet? I genuinely love to know. And if this video helped you today, please share it with someone you care about who struggles with leg cramps. You could genuinely change their nights for the better. Now, if you want to take the next step, I've got another video you won't want to miss. We've talked today about what's causing your leg cramps. In my next video, I'm going to show you the 5 foods that can stop leg cramps fast and reverse years of mineral depletion. These are foods you can find at any grocery store, and they start working quickly. Click that video right now. I'll see you there. I'm Dr. Alan Mandell, reminding you as always that a healthier, stronger you is absolutely within reach. Take care of yourselves.